In the age of multiculturalism, we're assured that every culture should be celebrated, except our own. All religious practices should be honored, except our own. No one's values should be condemned, except our own. For some reason, this self-flagellating nonsense is enjoyable for lots of people who've gone through the Western education system. But it only works if you're completely out of touch with history and reality. Let's see why. CBS News reports, ancient altar found in Guatemala jungle apparently used for sacrifices, especially of children, archaeologists say. An altar from the Teotihuacan culture at the pre-Hispanic heart of what became Mexico was discovered in Tikal National Park in Guatemala, the center of Mayan culture, demonstrating the interaction between the two societies, Guatemala's Culture and Sports Ministry announced this week. The enormous city-state of Tikal, whose towering temples still stand in the jungle, battled for centuries with the Canol dynasty for dominance of the Maya world. So, Teotihuacan was a city in what's now Mexico, but they found a Teotihuacan altar in Guatemala, which means there was some cultural sharing going on. The problem is that what was being shared was child sacrifice. Far to the north in Mexico, just outside present-day Mexico City, Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, or the place where men become gods, is best known for its twin temples of the sun and moon. It was actually a large city that housed over 100,000 inhabitants and covered around 8 square miles. The still mysterious city was one of the largest in the world at its peak between 100 BC and AD 750, but it was abandoned before the rise of the Aztecs in the 14th century. Lorena Pais, the archaeologist who led the discovery, said that the Teotihuacan altar was believed to have been used for sacrifices, especially of children. Why would they sacrifice their children? And why did this practice spring up in so many different parts of the ancient world? The remains of 3 children not older than 4 years were found on 3 sides of the altar, Pais told the Associated Press. The Teotihuacan were traders who traveled all over the country, Guatemala, Pais said. The Teotihuacan residential complexes were houses with rooms and in the center altars. That's what the residence that was found is like, with an altar with the figure representing the storm goddess. Sounds like they were sacrificing their children to appease the storm goddess. Maria Belén Mendez, an archaeologist who was not involved with the project, said the discovery confirms that there has been an interconnection between both cultures and what their relationships with their gods and celestial bodies was like. We see how the issue of sacrifice exists in both cultures. It was a practice. It's not that they were violent. It was their way of connecting with the celestial bodies, she said. They connected with the celestial bodies and appeased the storm goddess through human sacrifice, especially child sacrifice. So, how did people in the Americas come up with the same idea, child sacrifice, as people in the ancient Near East and in other parts of the world? And why does it seem so strange to us now when it was apparently pretty normal back then? I'll answer those questions after a brief message about this video's sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, don't sacrifice your children. Instead, buy your children an Artzabox, which will connect them with the Bible and ultimately help them understand the message that put an end to child sacrifice. More on that message in a moment. We've partnered with Artzabox, a company that gathers items from Jewish and Christian small businesses and charities in Jerusalem and Nazareth and Bethlehem and other locations and ships them to you in a box. You get dishes, decorations, pendants, candy, Israeli spices, all kinds of things, along with a booklet that tells you about the people who provide them, teaches you some basic Hebrew, and explains how the items are connected to the theme. Artzaboxes are fun to open with your family, and they make great gifts Your kids will love them way more than being sacrificed. There's a new one every 3 months. It's like Christmas 4 times a year. So sign up to get your first Artsa box. The link is in the description. Use the promo code DIZZLE to get a discount and to let them know who sent you. Now, back to our topic, child sacrifice. Why did various cultures in completely different parts of the ancient world get the same idea about offering their children to their gods? Well, in the ancient world, your devotion to your God was measured by the value of the sacrifice you brought to the altar. People demonstrated their love for their God by offering what was most valuable to them. What's the most valuable sacrifice people could bring to the altar? Their children. In the ancient land of Canaan, for instance, priests of the god Moloch would heat up a bronze statue of Moloch until it was glowing, and the devout would place their children into its fiery arms, where their children would burn. Then came Abraham. One of the most famous stories in the Old Testament is the story of God commanding Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. In Genesis 22, God tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. So Abraham takes Isaac to a mountain, but Isaac doesn't know what his dad's about to do. As they're walking, Isaac asks his father Abraham, "Where's the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answers, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering." Abraham ties up his son and puts him on a pile of wood and is ready to kill him. But God stops him and tells him not to hurt Isaac. Then Abraham looks and sees a ram caught by its horns, and Abraham offers the ram as a sacrifice. Critics of the Bible point to this and say how barbaric that God would tell Abraham to do that and that Abraham would be willing to sacrifice his son. But I think they're missing the point. Abraham was surrounded by people who were convinced that the greatest thing they could do was sacrifice their children to their God. Abraham was ready to do it, but God told him to stop. The takeaway message of the story of Abraham and Isaac for the surrounding culture was this: Abraham is just as devout as any of you. He's the sort of person who's willing to do whatever his God commands. The difference between you and Abraham is that Abraham's God doesn't want him to sacrifice his son. Abraham's God stops him from sacrificing his son. Abraham's God provides his own sacrifice. So, in various ancient cultures, you would demonstrate your love for your God by sacrificing what was most precious and valuable to you. The message of the Bible is that you don't sacrifice your way to God. God provides his own sacrifice and demonstrates his love by sacrificing his way to you. This message changed the world. And as people in the 21st century turn away from the God who provides his own sacrifice, what happens? They return to the paganism of child sacrifice, demonstrating their devotion to their new gods by offering up their children. Think about the grooming gangs in the UK. Tens of thousands of young girls were horribly abused, and police and social workers and prosecutors knew it was happening. Why did they let it happen? To demonstrate their devotion to tolerance, their new god. If you're a Hollywood A-lister, you can't show up to the awards show with your son or daughter unless your son or daughter has had some body parts removed. What is everyone doing? They're sacrificing their children to appease their new gods. But here's an idea. Let's stick with the God who provides his own sacrifice. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him.